All right, good morning, counsel. Back on the record in the Simpson matter. The defendant's again present with his counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Kardashian, Mr. Douglas, and Mr. Bailey, people represented by Ms. Clark and Mr. Darden. The jury is not present. We need to take up two matters. First of all, the court has found abundant good cause to excuse juror number 602, and we will be replacing juror number 602 when the jury joins us. I'm going to direct, excuse me, Mr. Cochran, can I have your attention, please?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Clark? I'm going to instruct counsel not to discuss publicly in any manner the proceedings that went on in chambers this morning regarding the excusal of this juror till the matter has been concluded.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it.
All right, any other comment? My recollection is that the excusal was with the consent of both parties.
That is true, Your Honor.
There was no opposition from either side.
All right.
That is true.
All right, secondly, we have a tape that needs to be displayed to the defense.
We have a videotape.
All right, good morning, Mr. Darden.
Good morning, Your Honor. There's a videotape of Detective Vannatter driving from Bundy to Rockingham. He is attempting to approximate the time in the tape.
All right.
Proceeding east on Ashford, approaching Cliffwood. Turning right south on Cliffwood from Ashford. On Cliffwood, approaching the signal at Sunset Boulevard to go left, east. Turning left east on the Sunset. right south. Kettner. Which turns into Bundy Drive. We're approaching the intersection of Bundy and San Vicente. We're going to turn left east and then a quick right turn south back on the Bundy. We're approaching the intersection of Bundy and Montana. Continuing south across Montana on Bundy Drive. Passing the intersection of Gorham. Passing the location of 875 now and turning right on Dorothy Avenue west. To right north in the alley to the rear of 875 Bundy. And stopping now right at the rear of 875.
All right, Mr. Darden, is that the complete tape?
That is, Your Honor. Can I have one moment? There is a second part which is on laser, and that is the trip from Bundy back to Rocky Mountain.
One's on video and one's on laser. All right.
Opposite directions, Your Honor, so that makes it okay.
Does that mean it's faster? All right, how about the videotape as 118 and the laser
Okay,
is
we're gonna start off
119?
with a real nice, easy warm up, right? All we're gonna do is elevate the heart rate.
Nope.
Take a little longer to get to Bundy.
Is there any way we can do a chapter stop on the laser disc?
September the 60 North Rockingham. Okay, Ron, go ahead.
Excuse me, Mr. Darden? Can you hold on to that, please? This appears to be the same sequence, starting at the Ashford Gate. It appeared...
And it's 10:15 p.m., September 25th, 1994, at the rear of 875 South Bundy, starting north in the alley to the rear. Okay, go ahead, Ron. We're approaching Montana Avenue, where we will turn right east. And approaching the intersection of Bundy, where we will turn left north. We are now headed north on Bundy Drive. Approaching the intersection of San Vicente, we will turn left west. Traveling west on San Vicente and making a turn right north on Bundy Drive. Approaching the intersection of Sunset Boulevard, where we will turn left west. Proceeding west on Sunset Boulevard. Approaching the intersection of Bristol Court, we will turn right north. approaching the intersection of Highwood Street, where we're turning right, or excuse me, left west. Approaching the intersection of Rockingham Avenue, turning right north. We are arriving at the Rockingham Gate at 360 North Rockingham and stopping at the curb.
All right, Mr. Darden, are those the two clips you wish to exhibit to the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Any comment from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, anything else before we invite the jurors to join us? All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jury, please. All right, Mrs. Robertson, would you please draw a number from our list of alternate jurors?
Juror number 1290, can you please have a seat in seat number 3?
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies to you again. This is how we start off every morning. My apologies to you for the delay in getting started. I know that you are aware that we've been in session with the lawyers. We've had some other problems getting started this morning. Other matters that I've had to take up out of your presence. I've had to view some videotapes that are going to be shown this morning before they're shown to you to make sure that they're acceptable. And I apologize to you again for the delay. Deputy McNair has already put a call in for the other problem that we had back there. So hopefully we won't have that problem again, but you have to understand this is a 25-year-old court building, and we have those problems from time to time. All right, Mr. Darden, do you wish to resume with your direct examination of Detective Vannatter?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right,
Thank you.
Detective, would you resume the witness stand, please? All right, the record should reflect that we have been rejoined by all the members now of our jury panel. Detective Philip Vannatter is on the witness stand on direct examination by Mr. Darden. Good morning, Detective Vannatter.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Detective, you're reminded you are still under oath. Mr. Darden, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Detective Vannatter, when we left off yesterday, you told us that you were speaking to Cato Kaling when you were interrupted by Detective Furman.
That's correct, yes.
And were you taking Mr. Kaling's statement at that time?
I was at that point writing notes to take the entire statement that I had talked to him about, yes.
Now, were you writing those notes simultaneous with your conversation with Mr. Kaling?
No, sir, I wasn't.
Okay. So you'd already spoken to Mr. Kaling?
I had a conversation, then I was going to go back, go over the conversation, and write notes of the conversation.
Was Mr. Kalin present, or rather in your presence, when Detective Furman came to get you?
Yes, he was.
Now, were you the first detective to be taken to the south side of the house to view the glove?
I didn't know at that time, but I've subsequently found out that I was not.
Now, and what time was it that you saw the glove, if you recall?
It was approximately 6:30. That's an approximation, sometime between 6:15 and 6:30.
Okay. Now, yesterday you told us that you climbed a wall just last week. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And was that in connection with the criminal investigation?
No, sir. It was in connection with doing my lawns and taking care of my home.
Also, yesterday you told us that you and Detective Furman went to the south side of the house and that you saw the glove there on the ground. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. How long did you remain on that south walkway?
Not very long. I walked back out front with Furman, and not very long, a minute or two.
So you and Detective Furman walked to the front of the house?
Back out to the front of the house, that's correct.
And at that time, did you and Detective Furman have a conversation?
Yes,
Did you ask him to do something?
I did.
What did you ask him to do?
I asked him to go back to the Bundy location to look at the other glove and to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing.
And where was Detective Lang at that time?
I believe Detective Lang had come out of the house. I believe he had just left Arnell Simpson, but I'm not positive of that.
Now, why did you tell Detective Furman to go back to Bundy and view the glove?
Because what I had seen originally at Bundy and what I seen at Rockingham, it appeared to be the same type glove. They left in a right-handed glove, man's leather glove. I wanted to make sure that that was actually what I was seeing. I wanted him to go back and confirm that this was a left-handed man's leather glove.
And did Detective Furman leave your presence?
He did,
And did you watch him as he left?
yes.
Did you see where he went at that time?
I observed him and Detective Phillips exit the Rockingham gate exit the Ashford gate to go to their vehicle that was parked there and leave the location.
And what time, if you recall, did Phillips and Furman leave the location?
I believe it was approximately 6:40 in the morning.
And did you remain standing in front of the property at Rockingham?
No, I met with my partner, Detective Lang, in the front there. We had a brief conversation.
When you say that you met with Detective Lang in the front, do you mean that you met with him inside the house or outside the house?
Outside the house.
Okay. Were you still on Mr. Simpson's property at that time?
Yes, in his driveway.
And what did you and Detective Lang do at that time, if anything?
Well, we discussed what had been found, the fact that we may have an extension of the crime scene from Bundy, and we made a determination that Detective Lang would return to the Bundy crime scene immediately and start that investigation.
And did Detective Lang leave your presence at that time?
Yes,
Okay. Did you watch him leave?
yes.
What time was it when Detective Lang left Rockingham that morning?
Approximately 6:45.
Now, you say that you and Detective Lang discussed the idea that you now had an extension of the Bundy crime scene?
Well, we believed at that point that the probability of what had been found, that we had an extension from the Bundy crime scene.
Now, did you walk Detective Lang to his car?
No.
What, if anything, did you do after Detective Lang left?
I was in the driveway of the residence, and I started looking around, and in the vicinity of one of the vehicles parked in the Rockingham driveway, I observed what appeared to me to be a blood spot on the ground.
You saw a blood spot.
What appeared to be a blood spot, yes.
And did you say that you saw that blood spot in the vicinity of a parked vehicle?
That's correct.
Can you describe this vehicle for us?
It was near the two vehicles that were parked in the driveway, and I believe it was closest to the Bentley that was parked there.
And was that the first time that you noticed this blood drop or apparent blood drop?
That's correct, yes.
And what significance, if any, did you attach to your observation of that apparent blood drop?
Well, seeing that blood drop obviously triggered the fact that I'd seen what appeared to be a blood trail leaving the crime scene at Bundy with someone that was either injured or carrying something bloody that was dripping. It immediately made me think that I'd picked up the blood trail again from Bundy.
What did you do at that point? What, if anything, Detective?
I walked west in the driveway, concentrating on looking at the driveway to see if I could find any other blood drops, or what appeared to be blood drops. And I did. I found approximately 3 or 4 more drops between the rear end of the Bronco and the first one that I discovered.
And at that time, did you approach the Bronco again?
I did, yes.
And what did you do at that time?
Well, seeing what appeared to be another blood trail, I walked to the Bronco to have a closer look at the Bronco to see if there was any other blood I could see there. I looked in from the passenger side of the vehicle and observed what appeared to be a blood smear along the passenger side of the console and what appeared to be blood on the inside of the driver's door of the vehicle.
And what happened next, Detective?
I then walked back east in the driveway, again looking at what appeared to be blood drops, and followed them found an additional 3 or 4 drops that led to the front door of the location.
You told us that at some point a criminal appeared at the Rockingham house,
Yes, sir.
and that was Dennis Fung.
Yes.
And what time did he arrive?
Approximately 7:10 in the morning.
And did a crime scene or photographer appear at Rockingham?
Yes.
At what point during the day was that?
I believe he accompanied Detective Furman back to the location, which would have been shortly after the criminalist arrived.
Were those apparent blood drops photographed?
Yes.
And was the Bronco seized?
Yes.
Let me see the board. entitled Blood Trail at 360 North Rockingham Avenue. Okay. May it be marked Peoples 118, 120? Okay, Peoples 120. It contains several photographs, Your Honor, and they are lettered A through G.
Looks like A through K to me.
Me too.
It's amazing how I can see through the board, isn't it?
That's why you're the judge and I'm the lawyer. Detective, if you'll step down from the witness stand for a moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Detective, if you'll walk over to this side of the board, please, and direct your attention to photograph A on the board that has been marked Peoples 120.
Yes, sir.
Keep your voice up, Detective.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Detective, showing you what is marked Peoples 120 photograph A. You see that photograph, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what's depicted in that photograph?
This is the Rockingham Gate, the entrance to the residence. This is the rear of the Bronco. This shows the residence address. And these two small white cards you see are evidence tags to mark apparent blood drops.
Okay. And what is shown in photograph B?
Photograph B is a close-up of the first blood drop that's in the asphalt street there.
Okay. And photograph C, is that a perspective shot of the of a portion of the driveway at 360 North Rockingham?
Yes, sir, it is. It's looking east toward the garage.
Okay. Do you see the white markers there in the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are those meant to depict or indicate?
Those are evidence tags that are put there by the criminalist when he's marking and photographing evidence.
Okay. And what is the criminalist intending or attempting to mark?
To show the trail, which would be leading east toward the residence.
And photograph D?
Photograph D is the shows the first drop that I observed in the driveway.
And is that that's the drop you referred to earlier when you said you saw an apparent blood drop in the vicinity of a vehicle?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And which vehicle is that depicted in the photograph, if you can tell?
I believe that's the rear vehicle. I believe that's the Saab, as I recall.
And photograph E?
Photograph E is a close-up of that, I believe.
That being what?
This drop that's depicted here in photograph D.
Okay. Let me ask you to step to the other side of the board, if you will.
Yes, sir.
Photograph F. What is depicted in photograph F?
That again is a continuation of the blood drops that run toward, or what appear to be blood drops that run toward the front of the residence. These tags again are placed by the criminalist to show the location of those drops.
Now, after you returned from the Bronco, did you follow the apparent blood drops?
I did, yes, sir.
And where did they lead you?
Well, I ultimately determined that they led me right into the residence.
Right through the front door?
Right through the front door, that's correct.
What is shown in photograph G?
Photograph G, I believe, is a close-up of the first evidence tag that's depicted in photograph F here.
And photograph H?
Photograph H would be a close-up, I believe, of the drop that's depicted in photograph F and photograph I toward the front of the residence.
Photograph I,
Is a different perspective, a closer perspective of the evidence tag that's depicted in photograph F here.
and what is depicted in photograph J?
Photograph J is a close-up of the droplet that you see from a distance in photograph K. It's first shown in a perspective to the front door, and then the photographer takes a close-up of it to identify it.
And photograph K.
That's a perspective of the same drop in J from a distance that shows the front door, the perspective to the front door.
Now, Detective, there's also a diagram contained on this board. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you see the red lines and the red drops depicted on the diagram?
Yes.
And what are they intended to indicate, Detective?
That would indicate the start of the trail at the back of the Bronco, which was parked on the street, leads into the driveway and right to the entrance of the home.
If we may we show the jury the board?
Yes.
The entire jury the board. Now, Detective, yesterday you told us that the blood trail at Bundy ended at the apron behind 875 South Bundy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you recall, what is the distance between the blood drop closest to the rear of the Bronco, located at 360 North Rockingham?
The distance from the rear of the Bronco to
Yeah.
the blood drop?
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly. I would have to estimate that.
Well, go ahead, estimate it.
Oh, probably 3-4 feet, maybe?
Okay, so you pick up the trail at the rear of the Bronco? At
Yeah,
Rockingham.
yes.
Okay. Now, you told us a moment ago that the blood trail, that you followed the blood trail into the front door?
I followed it to the front door. At that point, other detectives were there and pointed out blood spots right in the foyer of the home to me.
Other detectives pointed out blood drops inside Mr. Simpson's home?
That's correct, yes.
Certainly.
Detective showing you a photograph previously marked as People's 112. What is depicted in that photograph?
That photograph shows the foyer area of Mr. Simpson's home, and it shows a criminalist evidence tag of a area that contained what appeared to be blood drops.
Your Honor, we have a second photograph. It has not been previously marked, may it be marked Peoples 121.
Yes.
And showing you what has been marked as Peoples 121, Detective. What is depicted in that photograph?
That's a close-up of the apparent blood drops that was shown in the other photograph on a closer perspective.
And these blood drops are located inside the foyer at Mr. Simpson's home?
Inside the front door, yes, sir.
Did you continue to search that area for other blood drops?
Not at that point, no.
What did you do at that point?
I had other detectives that had arrived, and I had a couple of uniformed officers there. I informed them that it was now a crime scene, to seal it, not to do anything until I returned, that I was going to do a search warrant to get into the residence.
Weren't you already inside the residence?
Yes, but I hadn't searched it.
And when you say that you told the other detectives to seal the location, what do you mean by that?
Not let anyone in or into the location to contaminate any possible evidence that may be there.
And what did you do next?
I had observed that Arnell Simpson had returned to the location with a man that was subsequently identified as Al Cowlings with the two minor children. I spoke with Mr. Cowlings and asked him if there was a place that they could go to leave the residence because it was going to be sealed as a crime scene, and he stated yes, and they left.
What happened next, Detective?
I left the location at approximately 7:30.
Was the criminalist already there?
Oh, yes.
And what was he doing at 7:30, if you know?
Well, when he arrived, I had shown him the evidence that had been discovered. I told him that I wanted it tagged, photographed, and to be collected because it was in the elements, and there was a dog running loose on the property, and he was working at that when I left.
Now, where was Detective Furman when you left the property at 7:30 in the morning?
The last time I saw Detective Furman, he was with Detective Roberts by the front door of the residence.
To go back for a moment to your conversation with Mr. Kalin, at any time, did you ask Mr. Kalin if there was an extra set of keys to the Bronco?
Yes,
Did he respond?
yes.
What did he say?
He conducted a search of the kitchen area where extra keys to the vehicle were normally kept. None were found.
We have another board. It is entitled Bronco Evidence.
122.
May it be marked Peoples 122.
Peoples 122.
Detective, before you step down, you told us you told us this morning that you'd asked Detective Furman to return to Bundy to look at the glove at Bundy.
Yes,
Had he returned from Bundy by the time you left at 7:30?
yes.
And when in proximity in time to your departure from Rockingham did Detective Furman return, if you know?
He arrived, I believe, About the same time as the criminalist or shortly after the criminalist, which would have been 7:10 to 7:15.
Detective, if you'll step down for a moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Did you have a conversation?
Until he testifies.
Oh, well,
Detective, showing you the board marked Peoples 122 and entitled Bronco Evidence. First, in the upper right-hand corner, does that photograph depict the Bronco you saw parked at 360 North Rockingham?
It would appear to, yes.
And showing you the photograph marked A on Peoples 122. What is shown in that photograph?
That is the inside of the driver's door of the vehicle.
And the white tags? You see white tags in photograph A?
Yes, I do.
And what are those tags intended to indicate?
Those are criminalist evidence tags that are placed there where evidence is located on the inside of the vehicle. That's to photograph and document the location of the items.
Okay, what items are being marked in this photograph?
There's blood, what appears to be blood at these areas inside the door of the car.
Did you see that blood in the Bronco?
I saw blood inside the Bronco on the driver's door here along the top and along this area here.
Okay. You're indicating,
21 and 22.
okay. You also see an evidence tag number 23 in that photograph, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you see blood at that location?
I don't recall seeing it there. There was, no, not at that time. I don't recall seeing it there.
Okay. And directing your attention to photograph B.
Yes, sir.
What is shown in that photograph?
That's the console area, passenger side of the vehicle.
And there are two evidence tags indicated in that photograph as well, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Tag numbers 31 and 30?
Yes.
And what are they intended to indicate?
Again, they are criminalist evidence tags to indicate the location of evidence and to document its location when it's photographed.
Now, Detective, you told us a moment ago that you looked through the passenger window inside the vehicle, is that right?
That's correct.
Did you ever look inside the vehicle from any other perspective?
I did a number of times that morning, yes, but earlier in the morning.
And you also testified that you asked Mr. Kalin if there was an extra set of keys to the Bronco?
That's correct.
And why did you ask him for an extra set of keys?
The vehicle was locked. We didn't have any way to get into the vehicle.
Did you touch the door handle?
No, I did not.
How do you know the vehicle was locked?
You could tell by looking at the knobs, the lock knobs, that the vehicle was locked, and I didn't want to touch it because it was being preserved as evidence. I asked for the keys because I knew the vehicle was going to be impounded, and it would have made it easier for the tow truck driver to impound if we would have had the keys.
Now, referring your attention again to photograph A, do you see any portion of the door lock in that photograph?
Yes, you can see it right here.
Did you ever see anyone open the door to the Bronco that morning?
No,
Did you ever see Detective Furman open the door?
no,
You ever open the door?
no,
You ever see anyone wipe a bloody glove around inside that vehicle?
no.
Now, the photographs contained on Peoples 122, were they taken at Rockingham?
Yes. No, let me correct that. They were taken the following morning at the Los Angeles Police Department print shack where we had the vehicle towed to.
You told us a moment ago that you could not see the evidence marked with the number 23. Is that right?
I don't recall seeing it down there. I could have, but I don't recall at this point.
You didn't open the door to look?
No.
Could you see each and every area, each square inch of the interior of the Bronco?
No, I could not.
You always remained outside.
Yes.
Are the windows tinted at all?
To the best of my recollection, I don't believe they are, but I'm not really positive on that.
Thank you, Detective. Can we take the stand? May we show the board to the rest of the jury?
Yes.
Now, the white markers with the numbers that we've been looking at, those are evidence markers?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And were those items collected?
Yes.
They were collected by the criminals?
Yes.
And I'm referring specifically to People's 122, the Bronco board.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you earlier told us that Mr. Simpson was not a suspect. That is why you were at Bundy, is that correct?
At what point are you asking me, sir?
Okay, well, after your first walkthrough at Bundy, was he a suspect?
No.
And when you first arrived at Rockingham, was he a suspect?
No.
During the time that you were ringing the buzzer in front of the property, was he a suspect then?
No.
And when you rang the front door at Rockingham, was he a suspect then?
No.
At some point in time, did you consider him a suspect?
Absolutely. Yes.
And at what point in time was it that you considered him a suspect?
He became a suspect as soon as I saw the glove at the side of the house. It appeared to be a match to the glove, the opposite glove, to the glove that I'd seen earlier at Bundy. And then, after coming out into the driveway and finding the blood trail, he became a very strong suspect.
And how, if at all, did your observations of the blood inside the Bronco figure into your decision that Mr. Simpson was a suspect?
That appeared to be the mode of transportation that had transported the blood trail from Bundy to Rockingham.
Now, did you testify earlier that you declared Rockingham a crime scene?
That's correct.
Now, at that point, what were your investigative concerns?
At what point, sir?
At the point in time that you declared Rockingham a crime scene?
At that point, my investigative concerns was to ensure that the location was secured, that there was no destruction of evidence, and to further the investigation by getting a search warrant for the interior of the residence.
Okay. And did you obtain a search warrant?
I did.
Okay. Did you consider the Bronco evidence at all?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Now, what steps did you take to preserve the Bronco?
I had a uniformed officer stationed on the vehicle with instructions to protect it, not to let anyone approach or do anything with the vehicle.
Okay. Well, you've seen some of the photographs shown by the defense in this case.
I have?
Did you see the photograph of the woman peering through the window of the Bronco?
Yes.
How did that happen, if you know?
Well, I wasn't there at that time, so I can't tell you how, but it upsets me that it did happen.
And in terms of obtaining a search warrant for the property, what, if anything, did you do?
I left the location of Rockingham, drove to the Bundy location to inform my partner very briefly of what I'd found, and then proceeded to West LA Station, where I sat down and worked on the warrant.
Now, did you actually leave Rockingham at 7:30 a.m. that morning?
Approximately 7:30, yes.
Okay. What time did you leave Bundy the second time?
It's probably 7:45,
Okay. So you left Detective Lang's presence at 7:45?
approximately 7:45, yes,
And where did you go at that particular point in time?
to West Los Angeles Station,
And what time did you arrive there?
close to 8 o'clock.
And you returned to Rockingham at some point?
Yes,
And why did you go back to Rockingham?
I had a search warrant,
And what time did you return to Rockingham?
approximately noon.
Now, prior to your return to Rockingham with the search warrant, did you stop again at the Bundy location?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And why did you stop there?
To inform my partner that I had a search warrant and that I was going to the Rockingham location to have that executed.
And when you returned to Rockingham at approximately noon that day, were other detectives at the location?
Yes,
Was Detective Furman there?
yes.
What are the names of the other detectives that were at Rockingham at that time?
Detective Roberts was there, Detective Looper, Detective LaFall, and I don't recall any other detectives at that point.
Were there some uniformed officers at the location at that time?
Yes.
How many uniformed officers were there at the location at that time?
I only saw 2 or possibly 3. There were 2 at the Rockingham gate, and I believe there was 1 at the Ashford gate, but I'm not positive on that.
Are you acquainted with Officer Thompson?
I now know who he is, yes.
Did you see him at the location, that is at Rockingham, when you returned at 12 noon?
I did.
And was a search conducted of Mr. Simpson's home at that time?
Shortly after that, yes.
Did you conduct that search personally?
I did not.
Who conducted the search, if you know?
The search was, I turned over the responsibility of the search and the search warrant to Detective Looper from Robbery Homicide Division.
And why did you do that, Detective?
Because I had to leave the location.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Certainly.
One more moment, if I may, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Detective, you told us that Mr. Simpson became a suspect after you found, or rather after Detective Furman found the glove on the south side of the property. Is that correct?
After it was shown to me, he became a suspect to me, yes.
Okay. And not before that?
No.
Can we approach off the record for a moment?
Certainly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I need to look at out of your presence, and I'm going to ask you to step back. Unfortunately, the problem that you buzzed about hasn't been fixed yet. So we are going to take our break at noon, though. So if there's a problem, I'm sure that we can have a hall monitor for the facilities, but it should only be about 3 to 5 minutes, I hope. All right, so if you'll just step back into the jury room, please. You forgetting something? You Ladies and gentlemen, be seated. Mr. Darden, you have something you want to show us? All right, jury has left the courtroom.
Okay, this is the final warning. Everyone step back, please.
OJ, what can you say about this? Back up, please. You got any comments, OJ? You don't know anything, say?
Please step back. Please step back.
Have you been told you're under arrest, OJ?
I'll see you in a couple minutes. Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Darden. Any objections from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, what's the basis of the objection?
Your Honor, I don't believe it accurately reflects what the testimony has been. Testimony has been he wasn't arrested until the 17th, wasn't charged, and previous testimony from previous witnesses have been that he was not under arrest. And that I don't believe this gives a false impression that he was arrested, at least temporarily.
But we have a concept in the law of arrest and detention, the concept of detention, short of arrest, don't we?
Well, we have no testimony to that yet, Your Honor.
All right. Perhaps
There's no foundation.
at this point, Mr. Darden.
Well, Detective Vannatter is here to explain the video and to explain to us whether or not Mr. Simpson was placed under arrest or detained. And he is also here to explain to us how it is that Mr. Simpson became unhandcuffed. Certainly, he's competent to testify to all of these things. He is a police officer.
We would all, I'm sorry, you done? We would also, Your Honor, object to any of the audio portions of that tape with a reporter asking questions, with Mr. Weitzman making some statements to his client, which are privileged communications and are all hearsay statements.
All right. I think the audio was predominantly still cameras clicking and somebody's electrical generator. Do you need the audio on this, Mr. Darden?
If I'm wrong. We overhear no conversations between Mr.
I
Weissman.
heard questions being
If
asked.
they don't have conversations, then there'd be no objection to not having the audio.
Mr. Darden?
I'm saying that I don't hear any conversations, but I didn't hear a conversation between Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Simpson. Oh. Yeah,
Do you
maybe
want
I'm
the audio?
wrong. You tell me.
Do you want the audio?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to sustain the objection to the tape at this time until there's a foundation for what it depicts. All right, let's have the jurors. All right, you may proceed, Mr. Darden.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, when you arrived back at Rockingham, you say you arrived at 12 o'clock noon?
Approximately noon, yes.
Okay. And was Mr. Simpson there at the property at that time?
No.
Did you see Mr. Simpson at Rockingham sometime that day?
Yes.
And do you recall what time at all?
Approximately 10 minutes or so after I arrived.
And was he carrying anything that you saw?
When I first saw him,
Yes.
no, sir.
Did you see any lawyers on the property or anyone you knew to be a lawyer on the property at that time?
I saw a lawyer by the Rockingham gate, yes.
And did you recognize that lawyer?
I did.
This lawyer was a lawyer you had seen in the past?
Yes.
And who was that lawyer?
Howard Weitzman.
When you arrived at noon, did you have a conversation with Mr. Weitzman at all?
Just a greeting, just hello type conversation.
Did you allow Mr. Weitzman to walk onto the property at that time, that is at 12 noon?
No,
Okay. And why not?
because it was a sealed crime scene.
Okay. Did he ask permission to walk onto the property at that time?
No.
Where was Mr. Simpson the first time you saw him that day?
Walking across the driveway in the front of the residence,
And could you see his hands at that time?
I could.
Where were they?
He was handcuffed.
Had you handcuffed Mr. Simpson?
No.
Did someone else handcuff him?
Apparently, I didn't.
Okay. Had you ordered someone to handcuff him?
No.
Had you ordered someone or anyone to arrest him?
No.
Okay. If you know, Detective, how is it that this defendant was handcuffed that day?
When I arrived,
I'm going to object, Your Honor, to speculation.
Sustain.
You told us a while ago that you are acquainted with Officer Thompson.
I am now. I wasn't then.
Did you speak to Officer Thompson when you arrived at noon?
Yes,
And did you ask him to do something?
I did.
What did you ask him to do?
To make sure that Mr. Simpson wasn't able to enter the property if he showed up there.
Did you ask him to do anything else?
Asked him to detain him there in front and let me know that he was there.
You asked Officer Thompson to detain Mr. Simpson?
Yes, and let me know that he was present.
And you've been a police officer how many years now, Detective?
Over 26.
Okay. This term that you just used, detain, what did that term mean to you?
It just means to ask a person or have a person stay at a certain location. It's not physically putting him under arrest or taking him into custody.
When you told Officer Thompson to detain Mr. Simpson in front of the property, did you intend to convey to him that he should handcuff Mr. Simpson?
No, sir.
Did you ever use the term handcuff or the word handcuff when you posed this question to Officer Thompson?
No.
When you saw Mr. Simpson handcuffed on the property that first time, was he in the company of someone?
Officer Thompson.
And what did you do when you saw the defendant handcuffed with Officer Thompson?
I went out to his location.
And does that mean you went to Mr. Simpson?
Yes, I exited the residence and walked to where Mr. Simpson was.
Now, where was Mr. Weitzman at that time?
He was still at the Rockingham Gate.
And what, if anything, occurred when you walked over to Mr. Simpson?
I explained the reason I was there, what was happening, what was going to happen. And Mr. Simpson's attorney came walking up and asked if he could join the conversation, and I said yes.
Okay. Did Mr. Weitzman ask you to do anything?
Yes.
What did he ask you to do?
Asked me to take the handcuffs off.
Did you have the key to the handcuffs?
I have a handcuff key, yes.
Did you take the cuffs off?
Yes,
Why did you take the cuffs off, Mr. Simpson?
because he was not under arrest at that time.
But you considered him a suspect, is that correct?
He was a very strong suspect.
You considered him a suspect in 2 brutal murders?
That's correct.
Why didn't you arrest him at that time?
Well, knowing the situation that I was in, the amount of press that was present, I felt it better to continue the investigation and obtain additional evidence such as serology evidence before presenting the case to the district attorney's office for filing. I realize I only have a 48-hour time frame to put together and file a criminal case if a person is in custody.
Why was the media's presence a factor at all in your decision to take the handcuffs off?
Just the overwhelming amount of media that was present. It had turned into a media fest. And with who I was dealing with, I wanted to make sure that I had a sufficient case before presenting that case to the district attorney's office for filing. Again, I realize I only have 48 hours to either file the case or turn the person loose. And I knew it would take me longer than that, probably an additional day past that, to get any kind of serology testing done. That's why I didn't place him under arrest at that point.
Motion to strike non-responsive.
All right, the jury is to disregard the answer After, again, I realize I only have 48 hours, that part is stricken from the record as being non-responsive.
If I can go back and ask that same question.
Well, you asked him if the media had anything to do with his decision not to arrest. He told us about it being a media fest.
And you struck the entire answer, did you?
No, I struck everything, and then when we, again, I knew I only had 48 hours, that part,
Okay.
since the jury's heard it once already.
Detective Vannatter, when you released the handcuffs from Mr. Simpson's wrist, did you have the serology results, test results?
No,
Overruled.
no.
Can you tell us whether or not you had had sufficient time to evaluate all of the evidence you had up to that point?
I had enough probable cause to make an arrest, absolutely. But I wanted to continue the investigation to ensure that everything I had was what I believed I had, and to ensure that I had a case for filing when it was presented.
Motion to strike is non-responsive.
Overruled.
And so do I understand you to say, Detective, that in your mind you could have arrested Mr. Simpson at that time?
Oh, absolutely, I could have, yes.
Can I have one moment, Your Honor? You realized that the defendant was a celebrity, did you?
Yes.
Overruled.
What significance, if any, did you attach to his celebrity status at that time?
Celebrity status really has nothing to do with my feelings regarding arresting or filing criminal charges on someone. That meant nothing to me, the fact that he was a celebrity. What I was interested in was knowing the filing policy. I wanted to make sure that the case was a fileable case before the arrest was made.
And is that what you do in all cases, Detective?
Absolutely.
You mentioned a moment ago that that had you arrested Mr. Simpson, that you would have had to have filed a case within 48 hours. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You've sent blood and biological evidence to the lab, to the crime lab in the past for analysis. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is there a standard time or standard turnaround time when you send evidence to the crime lab?
No, it varies from case to case. I've never gotten anything back in that amount of time in my career.
You ever get anything back the same day?
Never.
And you knew that?
I knew that.
Now, did you have a further conversation with Mr. Weitzman after you took the handcuffs off the defendant?
Yes.
And did you ask him to do something?
Yes.
What did you ask Mr. Weitzman to do?
To follow me to Parker Center.
Why?
He wanted to be with his client, Mr. Simpson.
You were going to take Mr. Simpson to Parker Center?
Yes.
Was he under arrest?
No.
Was he free to leave?
If he would have wanted to at that point, he could have, yes.
He was free to leave despite your belief?
I had asked him voluntarily to accompany me to Parker Center for an interview. He agreed to that. Mr. Weitzman wanted to be with him. I asked him to follow me to Parker Center. He was not under arrest at that point.
And did you drive the defendant to Parker Center?
Yes, sir, I did.
And was he in handcuffs during that drive?
He was not.
But he was a suspect.
Yes.
Have you in the past driven other murder suspects to the police station in your police vehicle?
Yes, many times.
And did you handcuff them?
Some of them, not all of them.
Did Mr. Weitzman follow you and the defendant to Parker Center?
He met us at Parker Center, yes.
And did you have a further conversation with Mr. Weitzman at that time?
I did.
And what was that conversation?
He requested,
What's the objection? Sustained.
Did you ask Mr. Weitzman to do anything?
Mr. Weitzman asked me to do something.
Okay, and what did he ask you to do?
To,
It's a question, Your Honor. It's not offered.
I'm going to sustain the objection unless you want to be heard.
Okay.
All right. With the court report, please.
Room that they were in?
I could see the door, yes. I was in the secretary's area. The interview rooms are along one wall of that area.
Was the defendant handcuffed at that time?
No,
Was he under arrest?
no.
How long did Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Taft and the defendant remain in that room?
Probably 20 to 30 minutes.
Did you interrupt them at any time?
I did not.
Did you ever ask them to hurry up?
No,
You never asked them to hurry up and conclude their conversation or whatever it was they were doing in there?
no,
Did you overhear any part or any portion of any conversation the defendant had with his lawyers?
no,
Did you attempt to?
no.
At some point, did the defendant and Mr. Taft and Mr. Weitzman exit the room?
Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Taft did. Simpson remained in the room.
Had you told him earlier to remain in the room?
Well, I think that was understood that we were going to interview him, yes.
Now, when Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Taft came out of that room, did you have a conversation with them?
Yes,
What was that conversation?
that we wanted to interview his client.
And did you make any offers at all to Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Taft at that time?
Yes,
And what was that?
I invited Mr. Weitzman to stay if he wanted to.
Did you ever tell Mr. Weitzman that he could not be present during any interview or conversation you might have with the defendant?
I did not.
And when you told Mr. Weitzman that he could remain if he wanted to, what did he say?
He said he didn't need to. The only parameters he wanted was for me to tape record the conversation.
Did Mr. Weitzman say where he was going?
Yeah, he said he was going to go to lunch.
And was Mr. Taft present during this conversation?
Yes,
And what did Mr. Weitzman do after he told you that he was going to go to lunch?
I observed him and Mr. Taft leave the area that I was in, headed toward the exit of the floor of the building.
How long was Mr. Simpson, the defendant, at Parker Center that afternoon, if you know?
3 to 3.5 hours approximately.
And what time did you and the defendant arrive at Parker Center, if you recall?
I believe it was around 12:40, 12:45, something like that.
And what time did Mr. Simpson leave Parker Center that day?
I believe 3:30, the area of 3:30, something like that.
And was the media present outside Parker Center when you arrived?
Yes,
And were they present when Mr. Simpson left?
yes,
And when Mr. Simpson left Parker Center, was he in police custody?
no,
Was he handcuffed?
no,
Did he leave with you?
no.
Who did he leave with?
Mr. Weitzman?
We can go back a moment to that point in time in which you removed the handcuffs from the defendant. At that time, did you see the defendant's hand?
Yes,
Did you notice anything unusual?
yes.
And what did you notice?
That he had a bandage on the middle finger of his left hand, on the upper knuckle of the middle finger.
And did you note or observe any injury to that finger at that time?
Not at that time. I did subsequent to that after arriving at Parker Center.
Okay. Well, what significance, if any, did you attach to your initial observation of the bandage?
It appeared that he had an injured knuckle on the left middle finger of his left hand.
And did you consider that significant at all?
Oh, I certainly did, yes.
And what significance did you attach to that injury on the defendant's left hand?
Oh, well,
Well, going back to the original crime scene at Bundy, seeing the distinct single set of shoe prints, blood shoe prints leading away, with blood drops on the left side of the shoe prints, and then tracking the blood trail by vehicle to Rockingham, picking up the blood trail at Rockingham that went right into his house, would appear that that he had the injury that was that would have caused those blood drops on the left side of the bloody footprints.
During the time that the defendant was at Parker Center, did you photograph his hands?
I did.
Did you photograph his hand, his left hand?
Yes,
And did you do that personally, or did you have someone do it for you?
I had a photographer do it.
Prior to photographing the defendant's left hand, did he remove the bandage?
Yes, the bandage was taken off.
Okay. Did you take it off, or did he take it off?
He did.
Okay. And were you able to observe the injury at that time?
Yes.
Can you describe it for us?
Yes, it was his knuckle appeared to be swollen, and it's the upper knuckle of the middle finger of his left hand appeared to be swollen, and there appeared to be a laceration that run up and down across the knuckle, and then directly below that toward the first knuckle there appeared to be a smaller laceration that ran across the finger and down.
you take a sample of the defendant's blood that afternoon?
I had it done. I didn't do it, but I had it done.
And who did you have do it, Detective?
The on-duty registered nurse at the jail dispensary at Parker Center.
Is there a jail located at Parker Center?
Yes.
You never placed the defendant in that jail?
No, I did not. Well, I think I should qualify that. No, I did not that day, on the 13th.
The 13th would be Monday, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And can you tell us what you saw the nurse do in the jail dispensary, that is relative to the taking of the defendant's blood?
The nurse first prepared a form, which was an authorization for Mr. Simpson's signature. He signed and agreed to give the blood sample. The nurse took a syringe from his equipment and drew a sample of blood.
Certainly.
Mr. Shapiro for 1 moment.
Certainly. Certainly. All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Darden, do you want to see if you can wrap it up?
Certainly, Your Honor. People's next in order,
123.
123. We have a photograph,
123.
Your Honor. Detective showing you the photograph marked People's 123 for identification. You recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is that the photograph you caused to be taken on June 13?
That's correct.
And that photograph depicts the left index finger
That's correct.
of the defendant,
Yes.
middle finger.
Middle finger.
What did you say? Middle finger?
Middle finger.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't show me, just tell me. Is that how it looked that day?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Detective. Is this a good time?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess at this time. Please remember my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you regarding the case or conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Detective Lang, you're ordered to return Monday morning at 9 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, this afternoon the court is going to be in session on other matters regarding this case. I also have another case on my calendar, so we'll be here working. So you all have a nice weekend. We'll see you back here Monday morning. I'm sorry, Detective Vannatter, I'm sorry. I like the Lang guy. All right. He was here so long. All right, see you on Monday. Thank you all.